Hi everybody, Ron Placone here. You're watching another summary from the Indie Bohemians morning show. Now, something we talked a good bit about today on the show was Joan Rivers. We did not get to talk about her right when she passed, because our last episodes are on Thursdays, and then we do a repeat on Fridays. So didn't get to talk about her until now, and when Robin Williams passed, I did some vlogging stuff for the summaries on that, so I wanted to do something for Joan Rivers as well. So I never met Joan Rivers. I never got to cross paths with her. A lot of people that I know, a lot of friends of mine in comedy have, and a lot of the accounts that they have and the stories that they have to share are much more firsthand and much more kind of on that level. I unfortunately do not have anything like that to offer. But what I do have is just something that I can really take as somebody in the comedy world right now. I think there's a ton that we can learn, and some of the first things that come to my mind are work and passion, and that's why I have that in the title of this video. First of all, keep in mind the history. Joan Rivers came at a time where it was really not easy. Not just was it not only not easy being in comedy in general, it was really not easy being a woman in comedy. And that, to be honest, that's still the case. I mean, it's still in a lot of ways difficult, and I've experienced that, secondhand. I mean, obviously, I didn't experience myself, but I've been with female comedians, friends of mine, and we'll be at a club. I've literally seen it happen, where a club owner will go up to them and be like, "Hey, I usually don't think that women are funny, but hopefully you are." And you just, really? Did that just happen? And then you find out, yeah, I mean, when that happened, the friend that I was with, she said, "You'd be surprised how often that happens. That's a normal thing." So it's still not easy, but back then it was just so difficult, and she overcame all of this to just develop this incredible body of work, and she did it very unapologetically, and she did it, she take no prisoners approach, and she worked her ass off her whole life up until the end. And it's really a story in that, and something that I think really kind of captures that and is a lesson to not just people in comedy, but just people out there in the world. Not too terribly long ago, Joan Rivers did an episode of the television show Louie. For anyone that's not familiar, that's a show on FX. It stars Louis C.K., the comedian, and he also wrote the show. He kind of directs the show, and it's his baby. And it's a semi-autobiographical show about his life. He is a comedian. He is a divorced parent. He has two daughters, and it kind of goes through the quirks of his life, being a comedian, raising his kids, and all that. I know a lot of you guys watching this are familiar with Louis C.K., but for anyone who isn't, I recommend checking it out. It's a really cool show. And Joan Rivers of that show was that Louis C.K. was working in Las Vegas, and he was in a kind of small side room where the people can just go outside of the casino, and it's not really an ideal gig. Most people aren't there for the comedy show. They're just there because they lost their money and they got free passes, and so nobody's really into them, and he's just kind of going through the motions. Eventually, he just kind of goes on a rant towards the audience, and he talks about how the gig sucks, and how he rants about Donald Trump, and it happens to be at a Trump, and it's just a bad night for him. And then later, when he gets in trouble with the establishment, he says, "Well, I'm walking away. I quit. Get someone else to do this. This is a hell gig. I don't need it." And he walks away. And Joan Rivers is performing in the big theater under the same establishment in Las Vegas, the Trump Tower or whatever it was supposed to be. So he goes and he sees her, and he introduces himself after, and they're talking, and she says, "Oh, you're in the small lounge. I maybe I'll be able to check you out." And Louis says, "Well, no, because I quit. I walked away from it." And Joan Rivers gets so angry, and she goes, "What do you mean you quit?" And she looks at him, and she goes, "You have a job, and she goes on a tangent, and she goes, "We do this because we love it. We work. This is our thing. This is our passion. You have a job." She kind of kept reiterating that, like, "You have a job." And Sure, it was a TV show, and so it was fiction, but she was playing herself. And I think that even though this is just a small appearance on a TV show, this is really telling to what I think we can all take from Joan Rivers and what Joan Rivers really did and really meant to comedy. And ever since I saw that episode, and this was before she died, but ever since I saw that episode after that, sometimes when you're just starting out on the road or whatever, and you're a comic, it's not always great. It's not always glamorous. There are those nights where you don't connect with the audience the way you want to. There are those nights where you don't sell as much merch as you would have liked. There are those nights where you're in a bar and the microphone sucks and the PA's shitty and they treat you like crap and the hotel is horrific. There are those nights. Not every night's like that, but there are those nights. And, for someone like me, I've only been out full time for a little while now. It's only been a couple years, and in so many ways I'm still a novice working my way up. But, there are nights where I hear that in my head, where I hear Joan Rivers say, hey, you have a job. There are nights where it's shitty and I don't want to be there, and I think I want to be home with my girlfriend and my cats. I don't want to be here. But I think about Joan Rivers, and I think about her saying, hey, you have a job. I hear that in my head. And that makes sense, because show business, and it's never been easy. And now, the thing we face is that on any given night, or for comics at least, there's more comedians that would like to have a gig and don't have one versus comedians that do. So you know what? Even if it's a shitty gig, you're working. And Joan Rivers really lived that and really celebrated that, where it's about passion, it's about the work, it's about the life, it's about doing what you love and just finding a way. And she talks about that on the show. And, of course, at the end, Louis realizes he was wrong, and he goes and he says, hey, can I get another shot? And, the episode kind of ends with him trying to get that second shot. I didn't mean to kind of spoil the episode there. You should watch it anyway, because Joan Rivers' role in it is very powerful. And there's, of course, other parts I'm leaving out. So definitely watch that episode. But, even though maybe it's a weird way to pay tribute, but I think when I heard the news, that episode really stuck out to me, because I felt that was really kind of symbolic about what she did for comedy and who she is and the body of work she left, and which is very significant and very powerful and very broad. And it's because she was just all about the craft, all about the passion. And you know what? Joan Rivers, she wouldn't have time to bitch about a hell gig. She probably wouldn't have time to do something like that, because it's like, hey, you're working, you're on your path, you stay on your path. And that's a lesson I know that I need sometimes. And that's a lesson I think we all need sometimes, whether you're, whatever you do. It doesn't matter if you're in show business, not in show business. I think that's something we all need from time to time. And I think that's a lesson that Joan Rivers really lived and really personified in so many ways. And so next time I'm at the shitty hotel and don't want to be there, I'm going to think about Joan Rivers, and I'm going to hear her in my head say, hey, you have a job. You have a job. Stay at it. And I think that's a really important lesson. And Joan Rivers will be really missed in the show business world, in the comedy world. She was brilliant. She was an icon. She will be very missed. I know this might be an odd way to pay tribute, but it's significant to me, and I think it's a lesson that we all can benefit from. So, Joan Rivers, thank you for everything, even though we never got to cross paths directly. And you've been watching another summary from the Indie Bohemians Morning Show, and this is Ron Placone signing out.